Hey there, folks. Welcome to another exciting episode of The Expansion Project. I am your host, Fat Tony. In this show, I have casual yet deep conversations with professional athletes, entrepreneurs, coaches, investors, and other successful people in hopes of expanding my mind and yours while motivating and inspiring people along the way. Today, I talked with Ben Hucke, who recently made the transition from being a professional BMX rider to a full-time artist. Ben is a single father from Portland who has a really cool story of deciding to leave behind the 9-to-5 grind to make it on his own riding BMX for a living. I've known BMX for several years, and I was actually the team manager of his at one of the companies that sponsored him, and I'm really stoked to see how well he's doing following his new passion, which is drawing. We talked all about his career path and shared lots of insight and stories that I think you guys will find really interesting. I also shared a pretty wild story about the time I had a bunch of metal objects shoved into my ass and had hemorrhoid surgery. I apologize in advance for the audio in some parts of this episode. We started off the conversation on Skype, but it started to cut out a little bit, so we switched over to the phone, and we had a little feedback here and there, but we worked through it and got it to sound pretty good, so please bear with it. I promise you guys we'll get some great content in this episode. Ben, thanks for joining me today. You finally made some time to jump on Skype. I appreciate it. So I know Levi just left you, so you got a little bit of free time. So tell me how little Levi is doing.
Levi's doing great. He's going to be 6 years old this week, and he just randomly grew a couple inches out of nowhere. So
Oh, wow.
I had to buy him all new clothes again.
Yeah. Got any plans for his birthday?
We got some family coming into town from Montana, and we're just going to do the normal birthday thing. But because they're in town, I'm probably not even going to have him around for a few days, so I'm going to be able to get some work in.
Cool. Is he in school now?
Yeah, he's in kindergarten. He goes to a Montessori, which is a private school just outside of my neighborhood, and it's a mix of pre-K, K, and first graders. So he likes it. It's going pretty good, but next year he's going to go to private school.
Hey, so one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, we haven't discussed this in a while. Have you been doing CrossFit at all?
I have a little bit, but my sister sold her part of the gym that she was owning, and so I wasn't really helping out around there a whole lot, and it kind of just made me kind of fade out because it's on the other side of town. I didn't have a whole lot of reason to go there besides working out.
Yeah.
And I just got so busy with work and stuff like that. I've just been doing stuff at home on my own.
Yeah, that's cool. 'Cause I know for a while it seemed like you were pretty into it, and you're getting those deadlifts pretty heavy up there. And, dude, you were killing the rower. I can't believe how much you were rowing. That was insane.
I was doing like a 10K every Wednesday.
Technical difficulties. Hopefully it's working good. We were talking about CrossFit. How long were you doing CrossFit before you kind of tapered off?
Probably for like a year straight, at least.
Yeah. It's funny. You weren't posting as much about it as most people do that get into it. Was that an intentional thing?
Well, and I just had like BMX and art and CrossFit and then my son. I was just like, I try to kind of keep everything evenly spread out across my Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. Do you actually keep up with like CrossFit games? Like right now, we're just last night, I did the open workout 15.4. Do you keep up with like CrossFit games and the open and any of that kind of stuff at all?
I never really did. I did the opens on my own, but I never even did them with everybody else in the gym. I just kind of did them on my own. I don't know.
Was that last year or this year?
That was last year.
Okay.
And then this year, obviously, I haven't done any of them. And I've only been paying attention to it on like Instagram and stuff like that.
Yeah, gotcha. So let's talk about riding a little bit. I don't know how much you want to get into this or how much you're willing to divulge right now or whatever. But there's kind of, been a shift recently in your career, which we're going to get into a lot more. But maybe you want to tell us a little bit about the sponsor situation and how much you've been riding or anything like that?
I've been riding a fair amount. As far as sponsors go, I have 0 sponsors right now.
And was that how did all that come about? I mean, it seems like you were definitely getting more into the art thing and, putting a lot of focus and energy on that. So was it a conscious thing to kind of step down from your sponsors, or was there other stuff going on the back end?
I'm kind of an all-or-nothing person, and I've been juggling BMX and my artwork back and forth, like kind of 50-50.
Yeah.
And, to me, BMX is a weird industry, and it's something that your sponsors want you to give 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're, it's weird because sponsors want you to give 100%, and they don't want to sponsor people that have other things to do and other schedules, because they can't be like, oh, we need you to go here this weekend, or we need you to do this, or go on this trip and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
So BMX is funny in that way, because you kind of just have to put everything else aside if you want to be sponsored.
Yeah.
And once you start doing anything else, everyone just assumes that you're not interested in it anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. I mean, without knowing a lot of people's paychecks and salaries and stuff, I know that there's a ton of dudes out there that are quote unquote professional bike riders that just don't really make that much money, and they have to do other stuff on the side, and it's like companies want them to give it their all and want them to really focus on a video part or going on trips or whatever, but they're not paying them enough to, alleviate those other responsibilities and stuff. Is that kind of how you felt about it?
Yeah, I really just felt like I was, working full time as a BMXer and making less than minimum wage.
Yeah.
The only way you can get by as a sponsored BMX athlete is if you probably have 4 or 5 sponsors at once that are all paying you anywhere from $300 to $1,000 a month.
Right.
And, it's kind of hard to get by on that in a lot of places.
It wasn't too terribly long ago that Diamondback, which was your frame sponsor, kind of dropped their whole program out of the blue. Do you want to give us your perspective on that?
It was more of like a corporate decision by people that weren't even involved in bicycles. Really, they were just looking at numbers on paper. But that's really what kind of made me think about doing something else with my life. Diamondback was kind of in a weird place when I joined the team, and I put 2.5 solid years of just busting my ass and helping it turn around, and people started buying, frame sets from them, and, building up custom completes themselves, and, even completes were starting to sell better again. And I mean, all the numbers were on paper that there was a ton of improvement since I joined the program. And it was just kind of sad to see that, myself and everyone else had worked so hard to help it turn around, and then just the plug be pulled on it. So
yeah,
just made me realize that's kind of like what it is as an action sports athlete is you can work your ass off for somebody, but at the end of the day, it's not yours, and somebody can take it away from you. And that's when I decided this art thing, and it was mine. So I figured if I put that much time and energy and effort into something I love doing that was actually mine, it's something that nobody else can take away from me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what I felt like I was doing for being. But at the end of the day, somebody doesn't need you anymore. You're done, and you walk away with nothing.
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate, man. So moving along to after the Diamondback thing, you were still riding for Dance Comp and Shadow up until pretty recently. How did those kind of contracts end or departures happen?
Well, my contract for Shadow was up at the end of December, and I had gone an entire year with really not even hearing back and forth from my team manager, contacting him, letting him know I'm available, and stuff like that. So I felt like they really kind of just distanced me, and I kind of just felt like the end was coming because I know that I have value, and I know that I can ride a BMX bike. But they just weren't, I felt like they weren't doing their part. They were paying me, but at the end of the day, I feel like they should be using me and letting me ride and go on trips and do stuff like that, which I wasn't doing for an entire year. So I kind of just hit them up in December, and I was like, yo, I don't know what's going on. I'm hearing this and that from outside sources that my is up, and next thing I know, they're like, no, it's not even like that at all. And then I was just like, well, you know what? I'm willing to just step down and, just do my art thing and let everything else just kind of work its way out. And they agreed to it as well. But then it kind of got to the point where they're like, well, we'll talk again in 6 months. And I'm like, well, why is that even necessary?
Yeah.
And just kind of go to the whole, putting effort into something, and then at the end of the day, it's not yours. And it just really hit me hard. And you know what? I love these guys. They helped me out for the past few years, but, I've been working this job for 5 years, and now they're offering me to work for free. I was like, I'm just going to separate myself. I'm going to focus 100% on my art. I'm going to ride for fun. And then they weren't having it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think they got a little upset. They got upset that I wanted to quit altogether, and you know, maybe they felt like they bent over backwards for me sponsoring me the last 5 years. But if it was any other business or industry, that would be a professional decision on my part to leave, and the company would accept it. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
you were working at Subway for 5 years and they're paying you minimum wage, bending over back for you, you were doing your job and they were doing their job. And at the end of the day, if they can't pay you anymore and you say you want to quit, I don't think that should hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, over those 5 years, you built up relationships with all these guys over at Shadow and Sparky's and stuff. Do you feel like you kind of, with how it ended like that, is there bad blood or anything? I mean, obviously, I don't want to stir the pot over there, but are you kind of bummed? Are they bummed, or is everybody kind of like, let the dust settle?
I think Ronnie feels a little disrespected. I think Chadwick might feel the same. I didn't mean it in that way at all, but like I said, I was making a decision for myself, and separating myself from Shadow wasn't saying that I dislike them or I dislike their products. I was just, I'm quitting and I'm moving on, and I didn't necessarily feel that I need to be, blasted on Instagram as Shadow's professional BMX rider and kids seeing that all the time, because then kids hit me up on my social media and they're like, why aren't you riding, or what do you do? Like, do you still ride for Shadow? Like, ask me all these questions, and it makes me focus elsewhere. I'm like, well, do I need to be riding more? Do I need to be doing this while I'm trying to focus on this art thing? And I'm just battling myself in my head while I'm sitting here drawing for 14 hours a day. Like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting that you kind of
having to make a decision.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say you kind of have that all or nothing personality type, because I really, really feel like I'm the same way. And it took a good friend of mine kind of pointing that out to me to realize that about myself. And once I realized it, other things started to become a lot more clear for me. Like, my friend was saying, Fat, when you decide to work out, like you go to do CrossFit and like you focus all your energy on CrossFit and you do it 6 times a week and you just go so hard. And when you decide to eat healthy and change your diet, like you go straight from meat eater to hardcore vegan right away. And when you're 15, you decided not to drink and you've never drank a drop of alcohol since then.
Yeah,
and it's like once she kind of pointed that out, I started to realize like, oh yeah, I am like that. And now I feel like if I'm working on a business project or some kind of new venture or whatever, like I'm just so hyper focused on that one thing, and it's really hard for me to like put time and energy and effort into other things like that, And I think that's a cool thing to realize about yourself. And when it's either a revelation that you come up with on your own, through a series of circumstances, or someone pointed out, I think just kind of that self-realization is super important throughout our lives,
Yeah, and, I believe that's how you become successful at anything. That's how I made a career in BMX. I found out that I was going to have a son, and I was working a job 10 hours tired and beat all the time and dirty and gross, and I was like, I don't want to be like this when I'm coming home to my son. I don't want to be like this. And it's like I've been riding bikes my whole life. Like, if I ride my bike every single day, I film every day, shoot photos every day for the next year, it's gonna work out. And it worked out for 5 years, and I got to stay home with my son before, like, from 0 to 5 years old when he started going to school, and now I have more free time to do whatever. It worked out, and so I feel like if I do the same thing with my artwork, it's going to work out. If you treat anything you have like it's your job, or you're completely serious about it and put everything into it, it's going to become something.
Yeah, I agree, and we're going to talk a lot more about that in just a little bit. So it's cool that it kind of came up already. But one thing I want to ask you about, while we're still on the topic of the sponsors and everything, you recently covered up a tattoo. You care to talk about that?
Yeah, I did have the Shadow Crow logo on my hand for the past few years, and my tattoo artist actually hit me up and he's like, "Yo, so you want to get that covered up?" And I was like, I hadn't even really thought about it, and it wasn't something like I was like, "Oh, I want to get this off my hand," and I mean, it's a memory. It was a part of my life, and I have some respect for it. So it wasn't something that I wanted to like get rid of, but the offer was on the table at the time, and so I went for it. And my tattoo artist wanted to do a cover, a good one for him to cover up, so pulled the trigger.
Nice. Yeah, on I just saw it on Instagram or whatever, and it came just a few days after the, kind of announcement that you were sort of stepping down from the team, or whatever. And it definitely seemed like to the outside eye that it was like, oh shit, here we go, like maybe not shots fired, but
Yeah,
definitely
I
like,
got some emails. Yeah, I got some emails about that one, and I think one of them was like, well, "Why do you keep rolling the stone over?" And what's this done? Why do you keep turning the stone over? And it wasn't like that at all. Like,
yeah, yeah, cool.
maybe I should have just posted the picture of my finished tattoo, but I was trying to help my tattoo artist out and be like, he can do a cover up type of thing. Like it was more showing what he can do more than like, fuck you to Shadow or something like that, because I don't feel that way towards them at all.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So right now we're going to go into a section called Chime In, which is where I ask a question on Instagram and I have people chime in and tell me their answer. This week the question was, what is the worst physical pain you've ever been in? So you can kind of think about your answer, Ben, and you'll tell me that one at the end here. And of course, as I'm reading through some of these, you can chime in on your own and kind of banter back and forth about some of these responses. So what is the worst pain you have ever been in? Physical pain, that is. We've got at Lucha Librarian says, having a 5-pound tumor on my ovary that would twist when I sat or laid down. I don't have any ovaries, but I can imagine that wouldn't be too comfortable. We've got at Noah underscore. What's that?
So that makes my stuff hurt.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it.
Yeah. Hopefully our technical difficulties don't mess us up too much. I apologize to the listeners. I know we've had a couple of blips in and out and stuff, but hopefully we can keep rolling with this. At Noah underscore Bishop underscore BMX says, I tore the webbing in both feet. Do you know what webbing in feet are, Ben? Because I don't have webbed feet personally.
I don't have webbed feet, but I can imagine just tearing anything between your toes would hurt pretty bad.
Yeah, I guess so. So at Slice of Rube, I don't know what Rube is either, but at Slice of Rube says, 2 ingrown toenails and screwed up surgery on my left toe. At Aaron Johnson 84 is a dirt jumper and racer out here in Southern California. He actually wrote this crazy long wild story of dislocating his shoulder at Corey Anastasio's house and Nasty Dog Chillin' trying to help put it back in place for him. I won't tell the whole story, but you can go to my Instagram and read that. It's pretty funny. We've got at Majestic underscore Sawyer says when he shattered his kneecap. At CM Lee 711 says a kidney infection. It was like being punched in the back repeatedly for days on end. We've got a lot more here. I'm going to go through a couple of these really quickly because I've got a good one for you at the end here. At Dapper underscore Physique says, I destroyed my wrist in 2010, and when they had to take the pins out, they didn't give me any type of pain meds. That sucked. Yeah, I can imagine getting pins taken out of a wrist with no pain medication would definitely suck. At Jake Marr 15, he had a super long story too. I won't read the whole thing, but basically he dropped some peanut butter on his crotch, and a giant German Shepherd bit his nutsack.
I think something else was going on, and it didn't go the way he wanted.
Yeah, like I said, he wrote a long story about it. It was pretty funny. At Andy underscore Seehausen, shout out to Andy over in St. Louis, blowing my front teeth out for the 3rd time. Now, I'm not sure why the 3rd time was more painful than the first time, but blowing your teeth out would definitely suck and be painful. This is a good one. At Rugby Docs, I think it is, swallowed a small fish bone that lacerated the entire length of my esophagus and punctured my stomach. Fuck that. At Lady underscore Matu, shout out to one of my best friends, Lindsay. She says getting stung by a stingray. That's not too exciting, but whatever. So got two funny ones here. Actually, before I read these last two, because these are actually pretty good segues into my story, Ben, I'm going to have you tell me what was the worst physical pain you've ever been in.
Okay, well, the worst physical pain I've ever been in was breaking my jaw right down the middle, and I shattered my chin. So I got smashed in the face, and then I looked in the mirror, and I noticed that my bottom 2 teeth were gone. And I was like, oh, man. And I pulled my lip down a little bit, and I saw that my teeth were actually there, but my jaw was split in half wide enough to where it looked like those 2 teeth were missing.
Oh, my God. If you could, this is only an audio podcast, but if you guys could see my face right now, man, that is fucking disgusting. Oh, my God. So that was from riding?
I made it. That one was actually getting sucker punched in the face by a really big dude.
Wait, a fist made all that damage to your jaw?
A fist, but I'm pretty sure the guy had rings on his knuckles.
Oh my
It
god.
wasn't very pretty.
Dude, that sucks.
It was with so much pain when I was in the ER. The nurse and they gave me someone that I stopped breathing.
Fuck. Dude, we might have to get on the phone. Is your phone charged up enough that you could just do a phone call? Cool. So I'm recording again. A note to our listeners, we just had to ditch Skype, and we're doing this on the phone, which is the first time I'm recording a podcast on the phone. So I apologize for the technical difficulties, but hopefully we have enough good content here to keep you guys engaged. So Ben was just telling me about getting sucker punched in the face and having his jaw split wide open, which sounds absolutely fucking terrible. So Ben, I didn't remember this before we jumped on the call, but what you said a few minutes ago made me think that maybe I've already told you my story of my worst pain ever. Is that correct?
Does it have anything to do with the show Scarred?
Oh, no, it doesn't actually.
Okay, well then, all right, good.
Okay, so yeah, maybe you don't know about this one because I think the reaction from you might be better if you hadn't heard it before. But either way, it's a pretty crazy story. So let me go back into a segue here. I'm going to read two more answers here from people that chimed in on Instagram. We got @excrement says, having my butt cheeks tattooed, especially the crack, was the worst physical pain he ever felt. And @Aaron Wheels, who is the crazy Nitro Circus wheelchair motocross guy, shout out to him. He's a complete badass. Yeah, he's a badass, and he chimed in. He said, I just spent the last week shitting blood, which does not sound good at all. So those are perfect segues into a story that I have told very few people, and now I'm about to tell you and all the listeners out there that choose to listen to this. So hunker down. This is going to be a good one. So back in the day, this was, 5 years ago or something. Maybe not quite that long, whatever. I had some pain after I took a shit. And I was like, man, my asshole really hurts. And I couldn't figure out why, but I just kind of brushed it off. I was like, oh, I'm sure everybody's asshole hurts after they shit every once in a while, you know? Maybe I just had an extra large turd that kind of ripped me open a little bit. There might have been a little blood in the toilet, you know? And I'm thinking, this is, relatively normal. Like, I'm not sick or anything. Like, I'm a pretty normal, healthy dude. Like, this can't be anything bad, right? So, time went on. It was like, it healed up. My asshole stopped hurting after a couple hours or whatever it was, right? Well, there was another time when I went out with some friends, and I had taken a big shit before we went out, and I went out and I was like, man, my stomach is hurting. But it wasn't really my stomach. It was actually my asshole, but I just, felt weird saying that, and I just felt like because my asshole was hurting, it must have been something that I ate. And we ended up having to leave. I think it was actually at this, weird Gatorade, Nigel Sylvester party thing or something. And so I'm like, dude, my asshole hurts. So I just kept saying, yeah, my stomach hurts. We should just leave. I don't feel real good. I just want to go home. Then the third time it happened, it was Halloween. I had gotten fully dressed up in this costume. I was about to go out, and it happened again. And I was like, dude, my asshole is fucking killing me. And it was so bad to the point where I was like, I couldn't go out. I couldn't barely walk. I was like, what the fuck is going on? So I started doing some Googling and stuff, and basically came across hemorrhoids. And Ben, let me just go ahead and ask you, do you know much about hemorrhoids?
I don't know a whole lot about hemorrhoids.
Dude, you're about to get a fucking lesson of your lifetime right here. So I didn't know much about hemorrhoids either. I know back in the day they had a BMX seat called the hemorrhoid seat, and I just always thought it was kind of funny, but I didn't really know what it was. So I got on Google with my hurt asshole and found out what hemorrhoids were. And I'm like, okay, I think this is what I got. So at some point I had to kind of bend over and spread eagle and look in the mirror, and I was like, yep, I got me a hemorrhoid back there. So I went to CVS or something and picked up these medicated wipes that are supposed to help it out or whatever. And maybe I got a thing of cream too. So I smeared this cream on my asshole and I wiped my butt with these little wipes or whatever, and it didn't help at all. And I think the next day it was still hurting really bad. So I actually had to go to the doctor. And this is not a glamorous doctor visit, right? So of course, the dude needs to look at my butthole. So he's like, all right, drop trowels and bend over on this table, And sure enough, he freaking pops on a rubber glove and lubes up a finger and sticks a finger in my butthole. So keep in mind, like, I've already got this giant let me just back up and tell what a hemorrhoid is. It's basically like a big kind of like pus sac or some sort of fluid-filled sac that forms on the outside of your butthole and just creates a lot of pressure and stuff. And you can get them a number of ways. Of course, all this I learned over time the hard way. So keep in mind, I've got this like giant pussy sac on the outside of my butthole as the doctor sticks his finger up my butt. So I'm like basically screaming like, fuck, you know? And so he's like, yep, you've got a really, really bad hemorrhoid on the outside, but you've also got a hemorrhoid or what we call a fissure inside, which is basically like an interior hemorrhoid or some kind of like cut on the inside of your butt. Like on the inside of, you know, your sphincter in there. So he's like, yeah, basically I can give you these suppositories that's going to help the pain. But honestly, it's probably so bad at this point that you're going to need surgery. And I'm just like, what the fuck? So I go get this prescription filled, and they basically give me these giant horse-looking pills, like giant pills. And they're just like, yep, you got to put a little bit of lube on it and just shove it up your butt. So twice a day for the next like 2 weeks or so, I'm shoving these horse pills up my ass, which is just freaking torture. So the next step is I have to go to an actual proctologist, an ass doctor. So I pull up at the ass doctor, and he's got a beamer outside of his doctor that the license plate says :King on the license plate. So I go into the ass doctor, and of course it's still like tender and painful. I've got something going on the inside or whatever. Not quite as bad as before. But this time, he's got him and an assistant in the room, and they're like, all right, yep, you know, pull down your pants and, like, lay down face first on this thing with your ass way up in the air. It's this crazy, like, torture chamber-looking contraption. And they stick some kind of instrument in my asshole, and I'm, like, squirming and screaming and tensing up, and they're like, you got to stay loose, otherwise it's going to hurt more. I'm like, I can't fucking stay loose. I've got something on my ass. So they put at least 3 different things up my ass to, like, look at whatever, you know. And, of course, it's, like, totally, you know, emasculated, just having your ass up in the air and 2 people behind you, like, looking at your fucked up butthole. So they're like, yep, you need surgery, and it's going to suck. And so we scheduled the surgery, and he basically told me it's going to be 2 weeks of absolute hell. And he's like, there's nothing you can do for 2 weeks. Like, you're not going to be able to drive. You're not going to be able to go anywhere, do anything. Like, it's going to be the worst pain in your life. And he's, like, telling me this straight up. And I'm like, fuck, you know? And I'm kind of thinking, like, when am I going to have 2 weeks available that I am able to just not do anything? So I finally find a time where I've got like 13 days or something in between 2 trips or whatever. And so I go in for this surgery. And, oh, dude, I totally forgot. Before I had to go to the ass doctor, I had to give myself an enema, which just for time's sake, I'm not even going to get into that part. But that was a fucking complete nightmare in itself. Anyway, so I get this surgery. And before I go for the surgery, you know, I'm doing some Google searching and trying to see other people's experiences, and I'm looking on forum boards of, you know, other people that had hemorrhoid surgery. Dude, everybody that wrote anything about it said it was the worst pain in their life. They had women that had multiple children say it was way worse than giving birth. They had people that said it was worse than getting shot by a gun, and they just said it was there's nothing that can compare. So,
Oh, God.
yeah, so I get to the surgery. And, you know, luckily there was a friend that could come pick me up. And the doctor, you know, told me to get my pain meds filled before the surgery because I don't want to wait till afterwards. So he gave me Vicodin, Percocet, and whatever the third one is, like 3 different types of painkillers. And I'm a dude that doesn't do drugs or drink alcohol, so I'm, like, pretty against that type of stuff. Well, dude, I get home from the surgery and immediately pop, like, 2 Vicodins. And the doctor basically said to, you know, eliminate some pain or discomfort, just get into a really hot bathtub. And the first day, I'm like trying to just take a nap after surgery. I'm still a little bit drugged up or whatever. And dude, all I could do is squirm back and forth in my bed. It was like, it took every ounce of me to not cry as I'm just like rolling back and forth in just extreme pain. So I just make a scalding hot bath and get in there. And that's the only thing that relieves the pain a little bit. So for the first 2 days, basically, I was taking 2 to 3 Vicodins or Percocets at a time mixed with ibuprofen, and then I would get in a bathtub with as hot as water as I could possibly take it, and I would fall asleep in the tub. And as the water would cool after like an hour or so, I would just fill it right back up. So what they did for this surgery was they cut, like with a scalpel, this like, you know, pus thing off of the outside of my asshole, and then did some kind of some kind of thing on the inside. Basically, you still have to shit a couple times a day out of this gaping wound, and there's nothing you can do about it besides try to wipe it the best you can, and then you have to get in the bathtub and kind of like use the hot water to like splash up on your butt to like wash off the rest of the poo particles. And so not only was it the worst fucking pain that I've ever felt in my life for like 2 or 3 days, it was just the most miserable and like kind of embarrassing experience. And it's funny that I say embarrassing, and now I'm just divulging it to everybody. But think of this as a public service announcement to you and everybody else out there that if you get some blood in your shit or you feel some kind of hurting asshole, that's not normal. And don't be scared to bend over and spread eagle and look in the mirror to make sure you have nothing wrong back there, because you don't want to get to the point that you need surgery, because that shit was not fun.
What do they do? They have to like give you stitches inside or something? I don't get it.
No, I don't think they can stitch you because like you need to use your butthole still. So.
Well, I know, but like, did you have like a tear inside you or something? Like, I don't. What do they do?
I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that there's like no kind of bandage. You don't put any kind of Neosporin. You don't use soap. Like, you just have to let it heal, and there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah,
that's weird.
So horrible. All right.
Were you unconscious during this time they did this to you?
Yeah, it's funny because he said that they would give me like local anesthesia where I would be conscious but I wouldn't feel anything, and I was like, oh fuck, that's gonna suck. But as they were like wheeling me off, I remember looking at the clock, thinking like, okay, I see what time it is, and the next thing I know, I'm out of there. So as they were like pushing me down the hallway or whatever on the little cart, I totally was out of it and don't remember anything. So I'm actually kind of happy about that.
What if you didn't even have anything wrong with you and it was like a secret it was like a secret Fight Club gangbang thing that they did to you, dude?
Trust me, I fucking had something wrong with me. There was a lot wrong. I saw it. I used mirrors. I got creative with angles. I learned how to prop my foot up on the counter. Dude, there was something wrong. Believe me.
All right. Okay.
All right.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah. So we've wasted too much time on my butthole story. So let's get down to business. So one of the things I want to do with this podcast is talk to people that don't have regular jobs, because I don't like having a full-time job and don't like being an employee, and I know other people out there don't like that as well. So part of what I want to do is just kind of through conversation and through your experiences or my guest experiences, sort of explain what you did just to give other people motivation, to give them ideas, and maybe something will spark in them and they'll realize that they don't have to have a job or they can do something else to kind of create the lifestyle that they want. So let me ask you, Ben, when was the last time you did have any kind of quote-unquote regular job?
I would say the last time I had a real job was 2009.
And what was that?
I was working at a tire shop.
Tire shop. So that's when you were saying earlier you were kind of getting dirty and just really grinding, right?
Yeah, I was working my ass off, and I was working there for probably I was working there for a little over a year or so. And they pulled me in the office, and they're like, look, man, you're like the hardest worker here. We're really proud of you. We want to put you on a fast track to assistant store manager, and we just appreciate everything you do around here. You're really just kicking ass. And they're like, we're going to give you a 25-cent raise. And I was like, are you serious? Really? Cool. And I went home and I just never went back again.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Wow.
And I was like, I am busting my ass, working 60 hours a week, making like $11.50 an hour. I'm coming home. I'm completely filthy. I can't even get my hands clean if I try.
Mm-hmm.
I just found out my girlfriend's pregnant. I'm miserable. I liked my job, but I was miserable after work, and I didn't want to be like that. So that's when I was just like, it's all or nothing. I got to commit to doing something I love. So
you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but walk me through that process again of like, okay, if I, commit to the BMX thing and make it work. So how did you decide to make that commitment? What was that commitment, and what was the process like when you realized like, okay, this can work and I don't have to have a full-time job?
Breaking into it is like the hardest and the scariest part, because you don't know if it's going to work. It's a complete you're just jumping off the bus and running out into the woods, and you're like, I'm going to survive this way.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary, but it's possible. It's just, I just told myself, I've always been pretty decent at bikes, and if I just do it all day, every day, and film edits for brands that I'm associated with, and shoot photos and give them content, I'm going to be worth something to them. And I just told myself that, and I just went for it, and that's what I did all day, every single day.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, I went from 0 sponsors to like 5 sponsors in a year.
Yeah.
And I had a little side gig job that I was doing during this time, but it was pretty much like full commitment, just doing that. And I had to call my buddy that was giving me some like random work to do just to get by in that time.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hey man, sorry, I can't do it anymore. Like, BMX is taking over.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you sort of took the reins, and it seems like that's pretty different from how a lot of people come up in the ranks or whatever you want to say. There's guys that enter contests and start doing really well at contests, and the sponsors start coming knocking at their door. And there's guys that are just a prodigy kid that at 14 or 15 years old, they're just doing the most ridiculous shit, and one web video gets out there and everybody starts knowing who they are. But it seems like you really just went after it yourself and knew ahead of time that if you provide the content, if you get coverage, that's how you bring value to your sponsors. So it seems like you took a really proactive approach to getting that coverage and making yourself valuable, right?
Yeah, I pretty much just told myself that this is my job now and this is what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was treating it like my job, so that's what it turned into, and I feel like you can do that with anything.
Yeah. So when you did get those 5 sponsors in that 1 year time period, did you go to them, or did they start seeing you putting out all the content and putting forth that effort, and did they come to you?
My buddy Boy that was working at Sparky's, so he kind of got me in on the Sputnik thing, but it wasn't anything big. It was just kind of like, here you go, And I had talked to a few different people, and they were just like, yeah, well, we can give you, like, I think Ronnie was like, we can give you a wheel set and help you out type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's cool. I appreciate it. And I didn't have a whole lot of value then, so I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I just, took these little things and used them like my advantage. And it was like right after I started getting all these little things, I started, they were basically giving me tools to better myself.
Yeah.
And I just started like going as hard as I could. And people were like, whoa, we just gave this guy some wheels and now he's on the cover of a magazine. And like, maybe we should hook him up. You know what I mean? Maybe we should work with him. He's very proactive. He's very motivated. And, a lot of people get sponsored and they just, like, I'm sponsored now, and they kind of just ride the wagon. But
yeah,
I think just like working hard basically, and being consistent with edits and stuff like that, there was no reason for people to not sponsor me.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure. So without necessarily getting too much into the personal like numbers or salaries or anything like that, because I want to be respectful and kind of respect your boundaries here, but I'm really curious if you're willing to divulge during this time, where you don't have to have a job, you're a pro rider, where does your money come from? Like, how do you end up paying the bills? And that could be, contest money, salaries from companies, signature parts royalties. Like, do you get photo, video incentives? Do you have other streams of income? Like, kind of break down the pie chart for me of like where the money was coming from enough for you to sustain that lifestyle without having a job.
It just kind of came from all different directions, and luckily it added up enough at the end of the month. I was getting paychecks from a handful of different sponsors, and honestly, they all probably started out at like $200 or $300 a month, and then it was just like, okay, use this, and then use this to be able to go out and ride more, basically, and then I started getting like some signature products. I got on Dance Comp, which was huge for me. A lot of times, like, I honestly don't even think I would have been able to ride in BMX without Dance Comp. They have a very generous incentive plan, and they don't really have a cap on it either.
Yeah. So explain that for people that aren't really sure what you're talking about there.
Basically, incentive plan is, okay, we'll pay you this amount a month if you get a picture on a website or a magazine or, in something. We'll give you X amount a month. If you have a video clip wearing our shirts, you can see visible stickers and stuff like that. Basically branding, then we'll pay you this amount a month. And I was in like 2 or 3 edits a month, like whether they were like edits with friends or my own personal ones or, like a shadow edit or a Sputnik edit. Mm-hmm. And they were just coming in like crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I think, I made, to be honest, I was probably only making like $1,000 a month off of like BMX checks. I was only making like $1,000 a month off of BMX checks, and I was probably making, with incentives from all my other sponsors, like 3 times that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's basically, here's some money, but if you want to work, you can make more money. Like, if you want to work, you can make as much money as you want. Yeah. So I just took that in, and I was like, hell yeah. Like, I've always been a hard worker. I've always been motivated. And so I just worked my ass off, basically,
Yeah. And I know during this time, at some point, you started doing some kind of clothing stuff and selling things on a website. Tell me about that.
Well, my buddy Jared Sowney, he has a studio in town, and he does a lot of apparel for YoBeat, which is a snowboard website. Mm-hmm. Kind of like, it's kind of like Vital or the Come Up or something like that. But for snowboarding, obviously. And he does like all their apparel, and he always, he loves making clothing and stuff like that. And he was like, we should start something because, I can really only make stuff for them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, man, that'd be cool. Just a little side project. So we started making a few shirts, and we ended up calling it something because we were like, we should start something. And it just kind of made sense. It was just a fun thing. And we made a few shirts, and then we actually started selling quite a bit and doing orders to like Dance Comp and a few other places. And it actually became pretty profitable, but then I was so busy with BMX and he was so busy with YoBeat that like it kind of just like fizzled down. Yeah. I think we even got an order. We got an order from Dance Comp that was like a very, very generous order for like a pretty small clothing company. Yeah. And like, we would have made a lot of money off of it, but like we didn't even have the time to make the shirts.
Oh wow!
We were so busy, so we just like passed on it, and it just kind of died. And I was like, I got to the point where I was like, I'm gonna start making some more shirts. So I just started drawing stuff, and that's kind of where my drawing thing took off.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So maybe that kind of goes along with that all or nothing personality too, where you saw potential in this clothing thing, but it's not necessarily what you wanted to focus on at the time, so you just like dropped it all together, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yep.
So now we'll get into the drawing part, which is kind of where you're at now. So you said you started drawing by doing the shirt stuff. And it's funny, when I saw you started posting a bunch of drawing stuff, it kind of got me inspired. And I actually bought some watercolors and paper and started trying to paint for the first time since college, probably. But it was funny. I quickly realized that when I didn't have a reason to do it or like an end goal in mind, that I just like totally was not motivated. Like I did, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 small little paintings, and I was just like, why am I even doing this? Like, what am I going to do with it afterwards? Like take a picture of it and post it on Instagram, Like I have no reason to be doing this. And without that solid reason, I was just like, all right, well, I guess, my passions and creativity are being expressed elsewhere,
Yeah, of course.
Which I guess is kind of part of the reason of this podcast. Like I've always been into creating something and putting it out there and sharing my creations with people. And in college, I was forced to do watercolors and oil painting and drawing and sculpture and all this stuff. And so while I was doing it with a goal in mind, I enjoyed it and was good at it. But now it's like, I created photos and videos for a website, and now it's like, all right, what's on to the next thing? And now I'm creating a podcast, So one of my questions is, who takes the pictures of you drawing? Because sometimes it looks like there's a third party taking pictures of you posting stuff on Instagram. So who takes those? Do you hand over the phone to your 6-year-old son, or is there somebody else there?
Oh man, I'm just gonna leave that to the imagination.
All right, fair enough.
No, I was going hiking a few months ago, and my neighbor and my buddy Kevin used to live next door to me, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go hiking and take some pictures. He's like, oh, I'll take this, and he has this little like claw tripod thing for your iPhone, and you can just like, wrap it around a tree limb or a rock or anything really that you can form it around, and it'll take a picture and set your phone on timer. So basically, that's what I've been doing.
Cool.
I get to get Levi to try to take pictures for me, and they'd be a little difficult to use.
Yeah.
He's not the best photographer yet at 5 years old.
Yeah, gotcha. So let's talk about, I don't want to spend too much time on talking about how you got into drawing and that kind of thing. There's an interview that you did recently on deathgrip.net that people can go check out if they want to hear some more of the common type questions. I'm kind of curious about the economics of it. So can you kind of walk me through basically how you're able to make a profit off your drawings, and is that what's supporting you at this point?
As of recently, in the past few months, yeah, it's 100% living off of my artwork right now.
Mm-hmm. So how does that break down as far as how you get paid, how you end up, selling the photos? Kind of walk me through the business model that you're working off of right now.
Well, basically, I would just say everything is on Instagram. Mm-hmm. I post what I'm drawing. I post shots of it, like progress shots as I'm doing it and stuff like that. But people usually will direct message me and they'll be like, "Are you selling that piece, or is that a commission piece, or whatever?" And I usually find buyers that way. And if it's just something random I've done, I'll post it on my website, which is just benhucke.com. Mm-hmm. And if someone, I don't really advertise it too hard. If somebody comes across it and wants to buy something, cool. Mm-hmm. But I would say the majority of the income comes from commission drawings. People hitting me up, we draw a picture of my dog, we, draw a picture of my father's police badge, mm-hmm. or something like that. I get a lot of stuff like that.
Nice.
So that's like the majority of it. And then, I probably sell a couple random pieces of my own each month.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me, when you started doing the drawings, how you figured out your price structure, and has that changed any? Do you kind of base it on how many hours you do? Do you have set prices? How does, I imagine as somebody that's sold photos over the years, I'm 10 years into professional photography and I'm still learning more and more about how to price things out and stuff. So how did you figure out your price structure?
Well, at first I was, I had a friend ask me if I'd do like a portrait for him, and I was like, yeah, okay. And he's like, how much? And I was like, how about, like $60? He's like, what? He just laughed at me. He's like, no, you're supposed to charge way more than that. I had no idea.
Right.
And then from there, I just kind of bumped it up a little bit. And, you just kind of got to feel out and ask people what their budget is and stuff like that, or see what other people might be selling their stuff for. Mm-hmm. But really, at the end of the day, it comes down to, like, what you're willing to let it go for. Mm-hmm.
And is that based on the time that you've put in, or how much, like, sentimental value it is to you?
Well,
or
shit. Like, I've been doing these camera drawings, and they take anywhere from, like, 60 to 80 hours. Mm-hmm. And if I was to, like, if I was to say, like, $50 or $100 an hour or something like that, like, imagine how much that piece would be, and imagine how many people would actually be able to maybe purchase that. Right. So sometimes you just kind of have to take it and, sell it for what people are willing to pay for it at that time. And, it gets your artwork out there, and, at least you made some money and you're going to get by.
Right. So do you think...
Sometimes
I was going to say, do you think, you said right now kind of everything's on Instagram and you're not really promoting things super hard. Do you think if you kind of put any type of marketing strategy behind this that you could, increase it or increase your rates or, kind of make it bigger? Is that is that even a thought at this point, or are you just kind of going with the flow right now?
I've found that I've had a lot more success, like not even trying to promote my artwork. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's something that if people stumble across, it's more of like an impulse buy. Then I see tons of artists on Instagram and, you know, social media. They're like, check out my page, check out my art. Like, you look at the comments on like an art sharing page on Instagram, and there's like 100 comments of people like, hey, look at my art page. Hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. And it's like, I've never done that, and all these art pages are sharing my artwork when they find it. They're like, oh shit, look at this. Like, it's more of a surprise, and people are more stoked on it. They're like, you know, where did this come from? And then they look into it, and then they buy a piece or hit me up for a commission piece. I feel like if you're a little more subtle with it, not throwing it in people's faces, not really being like, I need to make money. You know what I mean? Like, just blasting it out there. I feel like it's worth more, because in the end, your art's going to sell itself. Like, it speaks for itself. If it's a shitty piece, you know, people are going to be like, oh, cool, you know, you put a lot of effort into that, but you create something that makes people really think, like, people are going to be like, shit, this is awesome. Like, you don't really, I really don't think that you need to, like, advertise that you're an artist or you're really selling your art. Like, I think the most serious buyers that have hit me up are like, hey, are you selling this? Like, I want to buy this piece. And those are the ones that are willing to spend money.
That's really interesting, man, because we already talked about how you're unlike a lot of BMX riders in the fact that you kind of went after it and made the pro BMX thing happen for yourself. And you had that, you know, I'm going to do this and sort of self-promotion, for lack of better words, type of approach to it. And this, something that I feel like everybody self-promotes, like you're, again, doing the opposite, which is kind of interesting, man. I wouldn't have thought that necessarily. But that kind of brings me to another thing I wanted to ask you about is, do you find yourself now kind of in the midst of an online art community? You know, like, obviously, you know, you said you keep up with CrossFit a little bit. I keep up with CrossFit, so now I'm sort of a member of this online CrossFit world. And, of course, both of us come from BMX, and both of us know that online space of BMX really well with, you know, the websites and the Instagram accounts and the Facebooks and all that kind of stuff. So do you find yourself now sort of in an online drawing community?
I do. It's kind of funny. I feel like I have friends all over the world now that are like really amazing artists, and I feel like I'm actually part of that. And it's kind of funny because each of these people have huge followings, but if you step back and look at them, they're not even promoting their shit. They're just working hard and posting their work for people to see. And I think there's a lot more respect in that in the art world, especially. Like, I mean, imagine if you're like a BMXer and you're like, hey, sponsor, like just putting out something that just says, hey, sponsor me, I want to make money, I want to do this. People are going to be like, yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I feel like 95% of the art world, at least online, is people doing that. And the ones that are actually getting huge followings and making a living out of it are just like, hey, I'm doing my thing. If you like it, cool. If you're into it, cool. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like those are the most respected ones.
Yeah, interesting. So speaking of sponsorships, are you a sponsored artist? What's the connection with Pigma Micron?
Well, I discovered Pigma Microns on Instagram, like other artists using them, and that's kind of how I figured out how to draw what I wanted, because I was using Sharpies and stuff like that, and I could never create what I wanted. And finally I discovered these Microns, and I just fell in love with them, and I started to be able to create what I had envisioned in my head before. And so I would just literally, you know, hashtag Pigma Micron, which would put it in a file, like basically a photo file online of like everyone else that uses them, just to show like what's possible with them. And then they ended up contacting me and sending me like a little care package. And then as soon as I did that, I started making even like for myself a lot better stuff, more like a lot better quality, like photorealistic pieces. And then they were like, whoa. And they hit me up again. They're like, we're making a new website. We want you to be one of our featured artists.
That's cool.
And then they you know, did an interview with me and posted it on their site, and then send me product basically whenever I need it.
That's awesome.
Which is like, you know, I'm not trying to be like, have a pen company give me money or something, but giving me some product is pretty valuable in itself, because those things cost almost $3 a piece, and I can go through like 30 of them in one big drawing. So,
oh, wow. Damn.
So yeah,
I'm curious if that kind of company eventually would like actually give people money for a sponsorship. I mean, it seems to make sense. You know, you're talking about this online community, and there's people all over the world, and you know, if you do all your business and all these other people do their business basically through Instagram, it totally makes sense now that we're talking about this, that a company like that would, you know, pay you or somebody like you to promote their products like that, which is something, you know, before I started looking into interviewing you, I never would have thought about, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense. So if you do ever get a paycheck from Pigma Micron, please let me know, because that's going to be a fucking awesome come full circle type of thing here.
Yeah, I mean, they do have, like, basically kind of how BMX does. They do have, like, incentives as well. Like, if you were to do, like a 2-minute YouTube video, or, like, explaining how you use the pen or something like that, they'll give you a decent amount of money for making those videos and stuff like that, for making how-tos and whatnot.
Damn. Well, hey, Aaron Nardi and I are going to come up there to Portland pretty soon, and we're going to film a whole series of you using these pens, and we're going to partner up with Pigma Micron, and we're going to do some work. How about that?
That would be awesome.
Word. Dude, I got to ask you about this, too. Tell me briefly about the cease and desist you got recently.
Oh, yeah. I did a portrait of Lemmy from Motorhead, and I started selling prints online, and I sold like a handful of them, not a lot, and then it kind of died out. And so when I'm usually like kind of sold out of my prints, I just post all my stuff on Society 6, which is basically like a website. I believe it's owned by Urban Outfitters, but you can post your artwork on there in like all different sizes and formats, and then people can buy products with that image on it, like your artwork. And so I did on that, and then I just kind of forgot about it, because I've literally probably only sold a couple things on there ever, and you make like small amounts of money from each piece that they sell.
Right.
And they print and ship everything, so it's literally out of your hands. It's just they send you a little bit of profit for everything. So I posted on there, and I just kind of forgot about it, and next thing I knew, somebody sent me a link on Facebook, and it was some like some website, like home website, and there was an article about how to furnish your entire home with Motorhead and Lemmy stuff. And so when you upload your artwork certain sizes on Society 6, like you can get a shower curtain, you can get a rug, you can get like comforters, like bedspreads, like pillowcases, phone cases, almost like anything. So apparently that web article went viral and it got posted all over the place.
Oh, geez.
And like a week later, I got a pretty like generous check from Society 6, and I was like, whoa, what did I sell? And I went on there, and it was all Motorhead, like Lemmy, the Lemmy drawings that I did, and I was like, oh, shit. I was like, awesome. And then like that same day, I got an email, and it was like cease and desist. Wow. And it didn't even really say who it was from. It just said the actual person or the owner, which could have been like, it could have been like Lemmy himself, or it could have been like the photographer that shot it, the photo, the original photo that I just basically stole and drew a picture of.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really consider that, but you know, I was just kind of testing my skills and, you know, like, you know, can I do this and make it look photorealistic, which I ended up doing. And, you know, maybe it looked too much like the photo, but so I don't know. I made a decent amount of money off of that, and I got a cease and desist. And, not really a big deal. It's kind of cool that they got recognized as, I don't know. It's cool they got, even if it was the photographer, like, it's cool that it got recognized as being as good as a photo, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. And luckily, it wasn't like so serious that you had to give up money or do any kind of court shit. Like you just kind of take it off the website and you're done with it, I assume, right?
Yeah. Society 6 just deleted off my account and then sent me something saying like, don't re-upload it, or anything like that. So
that's amazing.
So
if we would have said, or if you would have said 3 years ago that you'd be a professional artist, you know, would you have believed yourself?
I would have laughed. if someone would have told me a year ago I was going to be a professional artist, I would have laughed.
Yeah.
I literally just started drawing, like, just because I was just, wasn't going on BMX trips and wasn't, I was like, what am I doing? It's wintertime. I can't go outside and ride.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll come up with some shirt designs. And then I just started getting obsessed with it and doing it all day, every day. And then all of a sudden people were like, hey, that's pretty decent. Like, could you draw a picture of, my dog or, my car or, just this family piece of memorabilia or whatever. And,
Right.
So it just kind of just blew up from there, like right in my face.
So do you have, is your plan to kind of continue this and ride it out and see where it goes, or do you have plans to sort of expand and make it bigger? Is it important to you to keep something like this going to where you don't have to have a regular job again, or do you see yourself becoming an employee again at some point?
I don't want to get a job, and I don't want to work for anybody. I'm getting by right now, and it's a little bit scary, but I know that if I just keep doing it, like, I'm going to keep, it's only going to get, I'm only going to get better at drawing if I keep pushing myself.
Yeah.
And, it's going to make my work valuable. If I keep just busting my ass, like, it's going to work.
Yeah.
So, that's my focus right now, is just keep doing it. And I don't know, I don't need to work for anybody else. If I'm not making a shit ton of money, I'm not bummed, I get to wake up whenever I want to wake up every day. I get to do whatever I want every day.
Yeah.
I luckily I'm motivated, so I still do anywhere from 8 to 16-hour days of drawing.
Wow.
But that's because it's fun. So
Yeah. I think that internal motivation is something that is an absolute must for anybody that doesn't want that employee role. Do you ever think about kind of the message you're sending to your son Levi in regards to how you sort of designed your life around not having jobs and creating the work, whether it be creating the BMX career or creating this art career? I think that's a super positive message for him to see. Does that ever come up kind of consciously of like, I want my son to see me busting my ass, and I want him to see that you don't have to grind the 9 to 5, and it's okay if you do want that. Like, you know what I mean? Does those thoughts ever kind of come up?
It comes up all the time because, he kind of forgets, Dad's at home, like, we can just play all day or, go play basketball or soccer or whatever. And I'm like, I tell him, like, no, I have to work. This is how we pay for things.
Yeah.
And, I did that when I was riding BMX too.
Mm-hmm.
I always was like, no, we can't do this. I have to work. This is my job.
Yeah.
So he's always understood. He always has known me to have a job, even, the normal 9 to 5 out there, they're probably like, you don't have a job, you bum.
Right.
But he's always known it to have a job, and he knows I work hard, and I've just always, kept that in front of him. I don't want him to ever think that, I'm just skating by or anything like that.
Right.
He has some respect for it and knows that, a job is what happens in life, and he goes to a really good school, and, that he's young, but they're teaching him work ethic and stuff like that at a young age. So
Very cool.
It's not something that he's going to be like, I don't have to have a job. Like, he's going to know that he's going to have to work for whatever he wants in life. And even when he gets money for his birthday and Christmas and stuff like that, like you have to buy stuff. Like even if it's like a Lego set or something like that, it's your money. Like you're spending your money and you're not going to have it after this, or you can save money for longer and you can buy something bigger and better. So he has a general idea of things, and I don't really push it on too hard. He's 5 years old,
right.
but he definitely understands that Dad goes to work and Dad has work to do. So.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So we're going to wrap up the interview kind of part of this right now. We're running a little behind on time just because of our technical difficulties and stuff, so thanks for sticking it out. I want to end with a couple of quick hits, which, if you want to talk a little bit longer, if you have the time, please feel free. But these are questions that I like to ask a lot of people the same questions just to get different perspectives on things like this. So my first quick hit for you is, what are 1 or 2 things you do to simplify your life or eliminate stress or clutter? Because for me, I feel like my life is just a lot more at peace if I can eliminate clutter in my physical space, or if I eliminate the clutter in my head, eliminate stress. I think those things just make me a better, calmer, happier person. And I've got a handful of, what people might call life hacks or whatever that I do to kind of eliminate some of those stresses. So do you have anything that you do to eliminate stress or clutter in your physical or mental life?
Well, I drink beer. I definitely drink a beer or two almost every day at the end of the day. But no, like, even just around my house, like, my house is my living and my workspace, and I think it's very important to separate the two. I transitioned my workspace was my dining room, and I switched my living room into my dining room, so it's almost like a little, like, apartment studio space with, like, my kitchen and my living room and everything over here, which works good for Levi. You can go back and forth to each and doesn't have to go to the workspace. And I separated my workspace into my living room. I think it's really important to separate the two so that you can actually focus on work and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree, man. I actually got rid of a roommate after a bunch of years just last August and finally have my second bedroom as an office. And I absolutely agree with that separation of the space because I was in my bedroom, so many hours a day. I would just wake up, get on the computer, sit at the computer, go back in bed, and, rarely leave the room or whatever. And now I'm rarely in my bedroom, and when I'm there, it's like to sleep only, It's so nice.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's very important to separate and have an actual workspace.
Yeah.
And, as far as, like, clutter and stuff like that, I'm pretty OCD about keeping my apartment clean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people that if I haven't touched something for, 6 weeks to 2 months or something like that, I just toss it out or take it to Goodwill.
Yeah.
So
cool.
I'm like, get it out of here.
Yeah. So my next question for you is, do you have a favorite quote or do you have a favorite piece of advice that someone has ever given you?
Off the top of my head, really.
Right.
I always heard Ronnie Bonner say, like, work like you don't party and party like you don't work.
Uh-huh.
That was always a good one.
Nice.
So.
Awesome one. Actually, one of mine is actually also from a BMX company owner. One of my first interviews I ever did with anybody when I started working at Ride Magazine, I interviewed Robbie Morales, and he said, I don't remember what the question was, but he said something to the tune of, never let him see you sweat. And that just really stuck with me, man. Just the idea that, you bust your ass, but you kind of keep cool and calm and composed, like whether it be your customers or your business partners or your teammates or your team members or whatever it might be. Just don't show people that you're stressed out, kind of, is what I took away from that. And I think that's a really solid piece of advice. Just never let them see you.
That's a good one. I wish I would have heard that one a long time ago, to be honest.
Yeah. So kind of a follow-up to that is, have you ever had any mentors throughout your life? And if so, tell me about that relationship.
Not really. When I was younger, I always looked up to, like, Bruce Chrisman and a couple of those guys as far as, like, BMX, but, and he kind of always, as far as that, when I was younger, I was a little bit hungry about getting sponsored and stuff like that. He's like, nah, man, just do your thing, and, people will notice if you're working hard, type of thing. So, that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
And my dad was always kind of, just work hard, and, so other than that, like, not really. I kind of feel like I've just taken my, like, work career, everything upon myself, and just kind of I like to figure things out.
Yeah.
I like to know how things work, and I like to figure them out, and I think that's what's made me, like, somewhat successful in everything that I've done. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of get obsessed with figuring out how to make something work.
Yeah.
And I did that with BMX, for as long as I felt I wanted to and needed to, and, now I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So
that's actually interesting, too. I can relate to that a little bit as far as kind of figuring out and sort of enjoying that process of figuring it out, maybe, because not a lot of people know this. Actually, last year I started doing some high-end and luxury real estate photography, and it was kind of a way for me to figure out how to make money without traveling as much and how to just continue shooting photos to keep making more money, just finding another avenue of income, And what I found was that after I, figured out how to shoot the photos and how to edit the photos, which is a completely different style than what I was used to, and I figured out, how to build a portfolio website catered towards a certain, target audience and how to market towards those clients and acquire the clients and, basically built up this little small business based off this real estate photography. And after I figured it all out, I was like, I don't really like this that much. Like figuring out the process of, how to make this business profitable was more enjoyable than actually running it after the fact, So I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are that way. I mean, I've seen it, like, I hate to call people out, but, like, if you look at Rich Hirsch, he's a genius of coming up with brands and business strategies and stuff like that. But, once he's created it, he's done creating it.
Right, just kind of on to the next, yeah.
Yeah, so...
can you tell me, and maybe you already covered this with the 2 beers a day, but how do you decompress?
Honestly, just I right now it's drawing. I would say, even though it's my job, like.
So wait a minute. You draw for 14 hours a day, and there's nothing you do afterwards to kind of like unwind from that. Like that is your unwinding.
It's an unwind from that. I go walk into my bedroom like a zombie and pass out.
Okay, got it.
Honestly, like, drawing is like, it's just one of those things. Like, I don't know if you're like, it's a weird thing. Like, if you're like, if you're like on a long bike ride and you're just riding, or you're mowing the lawn or back in the house, like all you're doing is thinking about stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if you're that way, but that's how I am. That's how I am when I'm drawing. Especially like 14 hours a day. Like, that's how I just think and try to sort things out in my head.
It's almost like a meditative state that you get in while you're drawing.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I can see that for sure. I'll go ahead and interject a funny story here real quick. I grew up drawing all the time, and I would just, pick pictures that I wanted to copy and draw them, ever since I was a little kid. So this is kind of the opposite of a meditative state, maybe. I remember one time trying to draw a picture of Roger Rabbit that was on a bed sheet that I had I must have been like in 4th grade at the most, And I tried to draw this cartoon Roger Rabbit off my bed sheet, and I didn't get it right, and it just didn't look good. And I started crying, and I was so upset that like it didn't look good. I was just fucking devastated. And my stepbrother was there, and he still brings it up to this day. Like anytime we like get in an argument or whatever, he's like, "Oh yeah, remember when you fucking cried about Roger Rabbit?" So that's awesome. Complete opposite of a meditative state there. So when do you feel like you get hit by inspiration or ideas the most? Is it during that meditative state, or are there other times when you get hit by inspiration that kind of transitions into you wanting to sit down and hit that drawings page?
Yeah, it differs. Like, sometimes it just depends on like what somebody like sends me like as a commission, or if I just see like a really cool image or find like a really cool object, and like I just really want to do this piece and really stoked to do it. And it's a challenge for myself, basically, and I just love to challenge myself all the time and get better. Like, I get halfway through a drawing or like spend a couple hours on a drawing and I step back and look at it and I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, I get stoked. Like, it's like the first time I pulled a tail up on my bike and I was just like, fuck yes. Like, this is working.
Yeah.
Because I feel like every time I start drawing, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, every single thing you're drawing is different. So, like, you're not like, oh yeah, I just drew one of those last week. I know what I'm doing.
Right. You don't know what the hell you're pre-built up.
Yeah, and it gets intimidating. People are like, will you draw a portrait of me and my son? And like, you spend 4 days drawing it, and then you have to email it to them to see what they think. And you're like, it's intense. Like,
yeah. I've never really articulated that before, but man, I can relate to that part too. Like, as a photographer, as a video producer or whatever, people will hire me to do something. I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. And I show up and I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can fucking do this. Like, am I really like a talented enough photographer? Like, do I have the right gear? Do I have the right knowledge and know-how? And then sure enough, like, you make it happen and you stand back and you're like, fuck yeah, I did that shit, And maybe some of that self-doubt is like what keeps people like me and you kind of keep going and progressing, is like always having that doubt and always feeling like you need to be better than you already are,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's human nature, but I think a lot of people forget about it when they get I hate to say it, but like sucked into what's normal in life of just, going to work every day and doing your thing. And then you come home, and what are you going to do when you get home? You're just going to relax. You're not going to probably do what you want to be doing. Yeah. So you're not pushing yourself. You're just trying to get through that day. So I don't know. I found this, and it's what gets me through the day is being stoked on the outcome of something. So
yeah. I've got one last question for you here before we wrap it up. If there was a movie made about your life, what would be the hardship or the obstacle that you overcame in order to achieve your success?
A hardship or obstacle?
Yeah, you know how in movies they kind of have like the pinnacle where it's like, it makes it more interesting when they had to overcome something in order to climb that mountain or win that race or whatever it was that they succeeded at.
Honestly, probably when I was 20 years old, I joined the military. And I literally I was just in a hole. Like, I couldn't get out, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, where I was going to go. Wasn't, like, super motivated. And I had some friends that were in the Coast Guard, and I ended up joining the Coast Guard, like, as a reserve. But then 9/11 happened, and I became activated for, like, the whole 4 years. But
oh, wow.
I feel like that's really what kind of brought me back up to, like, a normal level of, okay, I can work and I can get through life type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I mean, I feel like I was just too much of a kid before then. And I would probably be in the same exact place right now if I didn't do that. That was just kind of like a bump up to like, okay, yeah, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. Nice, man. Cool. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Dude, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. I think as long as people can sit through our little technical difficulties here with the Skype going in and out and stuff, I think people are going to get a lot out of this and get some really cool insight from you. And I, of course, enjoyed catching up. It's been a while since we talked, so thanks a lot, man.
For sure. And I look forward to you guys coming up here.
Yeah, dude. I'll bring it up to Aaron right after I get off of this call with you. So real quick, tell people where they can go to see your work and learn more about you, buy your stuff. Give us some online plugs.
Let's see. I have my personal Instagram is just @BenHucke. I post a lot of like my finished artwork on there. But if you're into seeing like progress shots and how everything's pretty much created, you can follow @BenHuckeArt.
Okay.
And then from there, if you're ever interested in a piece or want to talk to me about a piece, you can find all my info on my website, benhucke.com.
Easy enough. Cool. Well, you guys know where to find me at FatTonyBMX on all the social networks. FatTonyBMX.com, and of course the show's website is at theexpansionprojectpodcast.com. And until next time, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you later.